All right, you are now tuned into the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmylee Velez. I'm here with Gabe, Heck, and Heather, Kona Compost. In this episode, we have special guest, Heather Guidice. We cover topics that range from small business ownership, gardening, composting, effects of the coronavirus, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from George Bernard Shaw and Elon Musk. Guys, if you're new, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Kicking things off, as you guys know, for this is probably the third or fourth episode where we have the little topic of the coronavirus. And the reason why I like to mention it is because of our audio, right? So we typically have our studio quality audio on every other podcast, but at this point, since we're using the application Zoom, there might be a little bit of an echo. Everyone's working out of their own home, so you might hear a dog bark, you might hear a baby crying in the background. There's all kinds of stuff going on in everyone's house, which is cool. But just I wanted to give you guys a heads up and thank you. And it's applications and technology like this that we can continue to do what we're doing. So with that being said, Heather, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in. For those of us who do not know who you are, what you do, let us know.
Absolutely. So I am Heather Guidice. I am the owner and founder of Kona Compost Company, which is an organics collection service based out of Yardley, PA. So we basically pick up your food scraps and turn it into nutrient-dense soil rather than them going into the landfill.
That's so cool. I just found that, me and you were connected on Instagram, and we're just kind of going back and forth. I just found it super interesting. So how did you even get started in composting?
Yeah, so, I've always been interested in gardening, and many years ago when I purchased my first house, I had the opportunity to grow vegetables, and my parents really introduced me to composting. And so I started composting my own food scraps and my yard waste and realized that I had something really special happening in my own backyard. I was using, the compost that I made myself in my garden, and, one thing led to another. And, I said, I think I have an idea here. So, at the time I was really in the creative industry and pursuing a career in design and photography. And kind of fast forward to 2018, I was laid off from my job, and there was kind of an opportunity for me to say, okay, do I go back to the 9-to-5, or do I, move forward with this idea that I've had for, years? And, I said, I've got to go for it. It's, now or never. So after, a bunch of research and formulating a plan, I moved forward with founding Kona Compost back in 2019.
That's awesome. So, a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs or folks who have a dream or have an idea, the biggest thing is making that decision and to make the leap, right?
Yeah.
How did you gain the confidence did you have like family support? With backing you and making that decision? How did you come to that decision?
So I've really backed myself from a financial perspective, but from a support standpoint, yeah, my family was totally on board, and friends were like, yeah, go for it, give it a shot, and it seemed just like the right time. I had moved from Montgomery County here to Bucks County, and there was nothing there. I'm the only person that's doing this here in Lower Bucks. And, I didn't want to have a regret later in life. And I knew that there was an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the biggest thing with a lot of folks. We talk about it all the time. Sometimes it comes unexpectedly, right? So, you had this dream, you already had the talent, you already had the skill you already knew you had something special. But it just so happened, timing was there, opportunity was knocking, and you took advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So many times people don't even realize opportunity is knocking, and it's showing them all the signs, right?
Yeah.
It's like, this is for you, take the leap, get a little bit more confidence. And I love talking with folks who just take the leap and just do it. Take action, because that's one of the things, right? It's, you don't want to regret. You don't want to, we only have one life, right? I mean, it's like, I don't want to look back and say, I would have, I should have, because I could have. You don't want to do that. And where it goes is where it goes, but at least you can say you had the confidence and the guts, honestly, to pursue it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so explain to us how the name Kona Compost came about.
Yeah, sure. So my ideal workday was to, one, be outside and work with my hands, but was also to spend time with my dog. Her name is Kona, and she comes around with me on a compost day and comes with me to collect people's buckets. And the other thing is that you think Kona, you go, okay, Hawaii, and that's everybody goes, oh, it's sunny, it's beautiful, it's green and lush, and so it kind of coupled with those two things that I thought it was just kind of a fun name.
Absolutely. What kind of dog is Kona?
Kona is an Australian Shepherd Catahoula mix. Whoa. And super fun, high energy. She's a great dog.
That's awesome. Very cool. All right, so explain your whole location. How did that come about? So you said you transitioned from Montgomery County to Lower Bucks County. We're from Lower Bucks County. You're absolutely right. I haven't heard of anyone doing it in the area. And then when I saw it, I'm like, this is awesome. It's different. It's fresh. It's creative. So explain, why you're taking advantage of this.
Yeah, sure. So I live in Yardley, and I thought it was kind of a natural fit to service the community that I live in, along with the surrounding communities. And, right now I'm providing service to Yardley, Morrisville, Langhorne, Newtown, Southampton, Northampton, Richboro, Bensalem, Doylestown. And the ultimate goal is to have all of Bucks County composting, but from an operational perspective, having route density and just being mindful of how long it takes me to get to the next stop is really important. So I'm currently focused on growing the existing communities, and people reach out to say, hey, I'm interested in composting, and I put them on a list, and if there's a ton of interest in an area, then that's kind of how we move forward with adding a new town or new development to the service route.
So explain the process, right? So if someone reaches out to you, they're in an area that you're already, let's just say you already have a route. How does it actually work? What do I need to do so you can make the pit stop to my house?
Yeah. So let's just hypothetically say you're a Yardley resident. Yeah. So people will reach out. I offer a weekly pickup or a bi-weekly pickup. So it's kind of what works best for you or your family, and it's kind of based on how much you cook. And they'll sign up. We will drop a bucket off on Thursdays, and they get a list of all the things that are accepted in the bin, and it's pretty inclusive. I don't accept meat or dairy, but if you're eating vegetables and fruits and pasta, coffee, tea bags, all that stuff is perfect for the compost. So they throw their stuff in the bin, leave it by their front door. I pick it up on Thursdays and kind of rinse and repeat. It's pretty similar to, the trash and recycling that we're all used to.
Yeah, that's awesome. So explain the I know you say like initially you use the term food scraps. So right. Explain what, I guess, the benefits of composting using food scraps.
Sure. So, if you think about what you're actually throwing away in the trash, probably more than 50% of it can be composted. So, let's just say you had a banana for breakfast this morning and a cup of coffee. The peel and the coffee grounds and even the filter, are really an important component of the compost process. You mix it up with leaves and wood chips. So you basically need a carbon and a nitrogen, blend the two together, and, natural decomposition takes place, and it ends up becoming soil. And the benefit of that is that it's not going to the landfill. It doesn't decompose in the landfill, so you're just contributing to greenhouse gases, which, don't do us any good whatsoever. So yeah, as opposed to just throwing it in the trash, I try to explain it to people like, we've been conditioned to recycle. So, you have, your trash, your recycling, your composting bin. It's just a matter of, rejiggering your habits to throw it in the other bin.
So now, and then what happens when it's in your possession? Once you go through that process, does it just, you have an area for it, or how's that work?
Yep. So I do. I have an area for composting. So I'm basically taking everyone's bucket, mixing it up with the like a combination of leaves and wood chips, and it goes into a big pile. And what ends up happening then is that there's, basically natural occurrences that heat the pile up, and it reaches upwards 140, 150, something, really hot days, 160 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah, it's smoking hot. And it's going to take a couple months to actually break down and make soil. But kind of that's the initial start of it. So things get mixed up, they heat up, and they eventually cool down and then sit for a little while. And then after a couple of months, they've cooled off enough where, you can, run it through a screen so you get all the big chunks out, and then you have your soil.
That's awesome. So is there like, how does the process work once you get like an account? Is that how it works? Or is it, there's like a monthly fee? How does that all happen?
Yeah. So it's, you'll sign up. You can sign up month to month. You could pay for the whole year, get a month free. Kind of whatever works best. And then, if you're month to month, it just kind of auto renews, and, I'll be there every Thursday to pick everything up, and, so far so good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a term that you used, that was called a pollinator garden. Hopefully I'm not butchering that, but can you explain what a pollinator garden is?
Sure. So, in addition to composting, I mean, my personal interests also reside in providing pollinators food, so that, you can grow your vegetables, and I think it's super important to have a healthy ecosystem. And, so over the years, I've kind of noticed there is a decline in bees and butterflies and other insects, which to me was a little bit scary. I've seen this cartoon, and it was like, back in the 80s, you're driving through the streets in the summertime, and all these bugs are hitting your windshield. Yeah. And, the windshield's clean now. So something has happened. And, being a gardener and growing my own food, I said, oh my gosh, I have to plant more plants that bring these insects to my house. And, so I'm really seeking out plants that support bees and butterflies, moths, anything that's going to transfer pollen around. But plants that are also, good for our local environment. I kind of feel like our ecosystem is a little bit out of whack, and needs to be brought back into balance. So, for me, I really try to do my part in making sure that, the yard and the gardens that I have, and, for other people too, are kind of putting that ecosystem back in place.
That's awesome. So I know I've had this conversation with multiple people when it came to gardening and living off your own land, so to speak, right? And it was a very normal way of living, whatever, 100 plus years ago. Not even that, you don't have to go that far for certain circumstances. And, and they always say, without farmers, there's no food. That's like taking it a step further. But can you just explain to the person who is, because I had two of my buddies also say, that they wish they both want to do these stand-up gardens. I don't know. They're like gardens that sit up about 3 feet just so they can't get to them, or whatever the reasoning was. And both of them said, I wish I started last year. And they both started already this year because of everything that's going on. And they had their reasonings beyond that, obviously. But explain a little bit about why it's a good idea, maybe, even if someone's only growing 1 or 2 vegetables, but just if it's a good idea to have your own garden.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I mean, you can go about gardening in a bunch of different ways, right? So being, able to grow your own, or being self-sufficient and, a total growing season it's exciting. And you could do it in containers. You could do it in the raised beds, like you had just mentioned. You can go, if your soil's good enough, you can go directly in the ground. Um, there's nothing better than walking outside and eating that summer tomato. It's the best. And if you really kind of think about everything that's going on, these days, it's really, it's a little different. It's a little scary, and having a little bit of stability to be able to grow your own vegetables, even if it's just over the summer. You're traveling less. The food is really going from your backyard to your plate, so you're reducing your carbon footprint there. You're probably bringing more pollinators to your yard, which is also a great thing. And then there's a sense of community in it, right? So one year I grew 40 tomato plants, and that's clearly a lot. Yeah. So I was able to share with people, and there's a sense of community that helps bring people together. Of trading vegetables. There's seed swaps that people take part in, and that saying, hey, I have this type of tomato, I'll trade you basil, I'll trade you some zucchini. And so there's really, the core of community could be based around gardening, which is just a lot of fun. And you think about everything that's going on now in the grocery stores, and it's a little weird. You walk in there and the shelves are empty. Maybe they're getting a little bit more full now, but there was a kink in the supply chain, and for nothing else, being able to have some food that you grew, rather than going, let me go out to the food store. Do they have it? Do they not? To me, it's important, and I think it's also important to kind of get back to some of the old school methods that, maybe our grandparents participated in, our great grandparents. We have technological advances now. And if you couple that with gardening and being able to kind of blend the two, I feel like everybody has the opportunity to participate, if they want to.
I think it's super important, something that you mentioned, the sense of community, because both of my brothers here can attest that we have an uncle, Uncle Ed, right? Uncle Ed has his own little garden, and he always just drops off. He does little drop-offs. You come home, and pinched between your door, you have these massive tomatoes, strawberries,
nice,
cilantro. And man, you could just see because there's a couple times I was working from home and I caught him in the middle of like the delivery. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome, because my wife loves tomatoes. And so he just see the sense of pride that his face would just light up. He's like, oh, I know Kelly loves them. I know you guys love them. You make a nice little salad. He gets a kick out of it. He explains his whole process to everybody. He loves talking to the neighbors about it. But it's just fun to even just see him and that excitement. But
yeah,
it's starting to get interesting, because then I think kind of how you're saying, him and a couple other neighbors, they kind of planned it out where I'll plant X, Y, and Z. You plant this fruit or tomato or vegetable, and then they were kind of swapping throughout the season.
Yep.
And they all kind of benefited from it. And all of a sudden, you go to his house, and he has a bowl of fresh fruit and a bowl of fresh vegetables. And my mouth is like watering as I'm talking about this. But seriously, guys, you guys can speak to, and then Uncle Ed can cook on top of that. Like, he's a great cook.
Yeah.
Top of having fresh ingredients, there's literally nothing better.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I feel like people really, don't necessarily take advantage of whatever space they might have. And, there's so much grass out there that doesn't really do much for anybody other than, maybe my dog to run around in. But, there's just people have a certain idea as to how their yard should look. And whoever came up with these guidelines is, a little skewed in my mind. But there's space everywhere. So, the crazy thing about the pandemic is that the seed companies can't keep up with demand.
Yeah.
People went, holy cow, this is happening. I'm going to go buy seeds. I'm going to go buy plants. I'm going to go buy soil. I'm going to go buy compost because, they were kind of scared. So it's kind of interesting the time that we're in now and the reality that's set in and people's mentalities changed. So I don't know. I guess we'll see where this all shakes out, but it's very fascinating.
Absolutely. I know one of the things, I follow you obviously on Instagram, and one of the things you're always showing is worms. Can you explain a little bit about the importance of worms and their role in all of this?
Yeah. So the worms that I have a vermicomposting set up, which is another way to go about composting your food waste. I have about 30,000 worms that are my like passive workforce. And I just, there's certain things that I'll feed them. And, the basic premise of it is that it will decompose, they will digest it, and they, poop it out on the other end. And that stuff is like super black gold. It's amazing. Right. It's great fertilizer, and, the worms just do a really good job of breaking stuff down. But they're really important for the soil, outside and in our gardens and in our outdoor compost piles. They are, digesting the soil. They're, getting rid of it. They're creating pockets of air. And, you dig in the soil, see a bunch of worms, you probably have some decent soil. So, they're super important. They have a really particular role in soil structure and, being able to kind of aerate your yard, aerate your garden. They're really awesome.
So let me ask you something. Is there a season for composting, or is this, all year round?
Yeah, it's all year round. It doesn't stop. The outdoor pile still heats up in the winter. So, sometimes you have to shovel your way to your compost area, but that's the only drawback. Other than that, it's all good.
That's awesome. So how has, obviously our current environment with the coronavirus, I just like, as of recently, we've asking every business that comes onto the podcast, just how has it kind of changed in a good way or just in a different way, the way you approach, the business, or is it bringing, I would think, almost even like more light to what you do?
Yeah, it is bringing more light to what I do. And it's actually, as kind of awful as the virus is, it has been pretty positive for the composting business. People are home, everybody's kind of hunkering down and cooking a little bit more. And, because of that, more food waste at home is being generated rather than, you bring lunch to the office or you go out to eat or what have you. So I've seen an uptick in customers. I've seen an uptick in the output of customers. And, so it hasn't really changed negatively. It's been a very positive thing for me. The other thing is, and it's kind of just good practice anyway, is that you just got to be mindful of what you're touching and your health and how you're handling things, which, is kind of no different, but it's just, at the forefront of your mind now.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So changing gears a little bit here, how have you utilized social media for Kona Compost, right? So I love everything you post. It gets everyone, more intrigued and kind of, you almost provide almost like an inside look as to, what you and the business do. So in that aspect, can you speak a little bit of how you utilize social media?
Sure. Yeah. So, we're on Facebook and Instagram, and they've both been just absolutely incredible. So, I'm able to reach more people, whether they're in Pennsylvania, across the world. I have a bunch of folks from South America that follow along, and it's just a great tool from a business perspective to, provide free education for the public, about the importance of composting, the importance of sustainability, and it's a super exciting platform that I have that, I can just share my thoughts and my insight and my knowledge and, my opinions and humor sometimes that, I hope people enjoy it and find it as a resource. And if people don't know what composting is or kind of a little apprehensive, I'm there to, kind of be that resource, be a mentor, be able to answer your questions. Because at the end of the day, I really just want people to do the right thing, to compost and to kind of promote, sustainability for our environment. So yeah, great tools. I've actually gained a lot of business from both of them. And, it's just, at the end of the day, I have fun with it. So people may not like my worm videos, but I do.
The little squigglies there.
Yeah.
So how is the composting community, right? Is there other businesses that are in other states or anything like that do composting that you guys kind of connect, or how does it all work? You kind of just do your own thing, or?
Yeah, no, the compost community is fantastic. The people are so nice, so helpful, and even when I was getting started, I still had a lot of questions, and people were really open to answering them and to hopping on a phone call or shooting over an email. But locally, we call ourselves the compost queens. And there's a couple of other women that compost in Philadelphia and out on the main line and out in Montgomery County. And, before all of this hit, we were, meeting once a quarter to just talk about our business and really just touch base and share ideas and goals. And, it's a really inclusive community, which, you don't get with different types of business, but this one, everybody's end goal is the same. And, if we can get more messages out there, if we can get more people on board, that's at the end of the day, we feel accomplished.
I was going to ask you that. You have to have some kind of sense of accomplishment when, when everyone talks about, doing their part in the world and saving your little portion of the world, and you really are doing something for the environment. What is that feeling? What does that mean to you?
At the end of the day, I can hang my hat and go, yep, today was a good day. I did something good. And, composting is just a small part of it. And, I think that, if people look at it and go, oh, what am I going to do to save the world? It's such a big thing. If they break it down into kind of smaller bites and say, okay, I can throw my food waste in this bin. I know that I've done something good, and it's easy. So, I want to help facilitate that for people. I want to also, make sure that they feel, comfortable, and they go, yep, that was easy. And they, tell their neighbor too. And at the end of the day, it's just a really good feeling to know that I've had an impact on my community, on somebody else's community, on somebody else's life, on somebody's kids. They learn something new. And it feels really good.
That's awesome. All right. So what's your kind of 2020 vision? You're just starting out. Where do you want to see yourself in the next, 3 to 5 years for Kona Compost?
Yeah, no, good question. So I'm looking to expand in the communities that I'm currently in to have more households join, to onboard a couple of small businesses, like the coffee shop that you guys interviewed, like places like that are great. Yeah. So I want to make sure that, I'm kind of a part of the community in that way. Education, like I mentioned, is also important. So really to find opportunities to speak to, different groups, either gardening clubs, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, different schools, to really just kind of continue the message of composting, and really kind of looking further down the road. The worms are a part of the business. I want to grow that part of it too. And I also want to incorporate another insect into the food waste, decomposition it's called a black soldier fly. And their larvae are pretty voracious eaters. And I think there's a big opportunity there to utilize them in some capacity to break down food waste and then into a source of protein. Their chickens really like to eat them, and I think there's an opportunity there for that. So we'll see. That's kind of a lofty set of goals there, but I think it's achievable. And maybe at some point down the road, I'll hire my first employee. My dog doesn't count, so
yeah, that's awesome. All right, so this is something we like to ask all businesses and all folks that we interview, and one of them is because when you're first starting out in business, it's basically all consuming, right? It takes up all your time and energy.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. And we all know that it's temporary. But can you share with, the audience, how do you manage, the work-life balance, or this is just it? This is life right now.
Yeah. I think it's about setting small boundaries, right? So being a small business owner, as you mentioned, you're kind of always on. It's a 24/7 job. And, I think you've got to schedule in that time to say, you know what? I've got plans. Family and friends and being social is equally as important as owning a business and being successful there. But your support system is huge, and you have to make time for that. It's crucial. So you kind of do what you can to say, you know what, I have a hard stop at 5:00. I'm going to go have dinner with my family. And, I'll come back to work when I'm done with that. It'll always be there.
Absolutely. No, that's great advice. What about for someone who is going to get started or is getting started in a small business? Do you have any, one or two tips for them? I know earlier we talked about, just taking the leap. Do you have anything for them? Any advice?
Yeah. So, what I could say to somebody that's starting a business is hustle, right? You have to be passionate. You also have to have patience. It takes time, and you kind of have to have some thick skin along the road too. I mean, there's going to be things that are going to not go as expected, and you have to, kind of have your, wherewithal to deal with it. And because you've decided to own a business, in whatever capacity it might be, I mean, just enjoy it, right? We have one life to live out in whatever way we want. And, no one says you have to go to a 9-to-5. It's, if you want to do, composting, if you want to open a coffee shop, if you want to be a farmer, do it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, you're going to learn something, and you're going to carry that forward with you, for the rest of your life. So either way, it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I love that you said have thick skin. It's not always going to look pretty. You have to have the strong mind. You'll see really quick how bad you want it when you're faced with that first, problem or controversy or, something that's technically not going your way. There's a lot of people who just got started, and, something like the coronavirus, that's an international pandemic, can totally make a business fold.
Yeah.
And it's these types of challenges and obstacles that we face that really kind of determine who we are. It's time to get creative, I guess, because now you have to think of alternate routes of how to get the same thing accomplished. Like I said, the creativity is going to have to come out, because now you're thinking of different ways on how you operate, and the whole plan, right? I love, for most part, when people come up with business plans, it's not always going to be so perfect. And I know one of the biggest things for myself was I wanted things to happen exactly how I had planned it, and I wanted to be so perfect, and that kind of actually held me back for so many years without me even realizing that's what my issue was. So great advice. Have thick skin. I love that. If anyone wanted to reach out to you directly, can you please share your social media outlets, phone numbers, websites, whatever you have?
Yeah, sure. So Facebook and Instagram, it's at Kona Compost, one word. Shoot me an email at info@konacompost.com. Or you can feel free to give me a call or shoot me a text. It's 215-850-9850.
Perfect. Before we close out, was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, just I appreciate the opportunity to to come on here and chat with you guys a little bit about composting and gardening. And excited for people to listen and, hopefully learn a little something.
Absolutely. No, we definitely appreciate you very much. All right, so we like to close out with quotes, and the first one is by George Bernard Shaw. People who say it cannot be done should not interrupt those who are doing it. And the second one is by Elon Musk. If something is important enough, even if the odds are against you, you should still do it. Kona Compost. In this episode, we have special guest Heather Guidice. We cover topics that range from small business ownership, gardening, composting, effects of the coronavirus, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from George Bernard Shaw and Elon Musk.
Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyleeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyleeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.